Welcome to Ruvheneko. This is a talk show that is going to be brought to you from Africa, broadcasting to the entire world. As Africans, we have many voices, we have many faces. We don't always get our story out the way we want to tell it. This program is going to bring you the very people that reside and make up our African continent. They're going to tell you in their own words how they live, why they live that way, and what it is they want for their future. Living in a continent like this in this time, there's so many evolutions, there's so many factors that influence our behavior, looking back at our colonial history and looking to where we want to be. There are many people and things we can blame for why we are where we are. However, looking at Pan-Africanism and the way that the continent is coming together under many different bodies, we're going to be able to now start writing Africa's narrative on our own as Africans and telling the world what it is that we expect and how we would rather negotiate with other influences that pretty much determine where we are today. So in this program, and particularly this episode, we're going to be looking at different conversations from different points of Africa and hear different voices that are telling us why it is that there are challenges in merging, whether it's Francophone Africa or different parts of the African continent. Culture is a big influence. And we're going to be trying to understand why it is that we have barriers, what the barriers are, how we can break them down. So I hope that you enjoy this. We're going to take a journey. We're going to be in South Africa primarily. Now, just because we're in South Africa doesn't mean we're not speaking to the rest of the world. South Africa has been a pioneer and a leader in many things that we represent and are proud of as Africans. So I took some time and I spoke to two gentlemen that represent Pan-Africanism. One of them is a Benin presidential aspirant of last year's elections. He didn't make it to become president, but he is still steadfast on his journey and how to develop Benin as a country and how to merge it with the rest of the continent. So in Benin, we have many things that we don't know about the country, but he is also the chairperson of the Pan-African Business Forum, a forum for young Africans to come together and decide Africa's future.
I'm here with a man who has made his name, firstly in his own country in Benin, as a presidential aspirant last year. And he is now a man who is associated with the Pan-African Business Forum. His name is Ladislas Agbesi. And he's sitting here with me, and I'm very honored to be able to talk to you. I've never actually spoken to anyone from Benin, so ça va?
Ça va très bien. Un plaisir à moi de vous rencontrer.
Enchanté. So we are going to be discussing a number of issues. He, as I said, is a presidential aspirant in Benin from last year, and we are going to be looking at the different aspects that make him who he is, but also in a global context, not just looking at the African continent, but looking at the entire world. His Pan-African Business Forum has recently endorsed Hillary Clinton as a presidential candidate. And we're going to ask him why. We're going to look at different aspects as to why the Pan-African Business Forum thinks it should exist at a time like this in Africa. What is its mission, its vision, and its goals? And we're also going to look particularly at the relationship between Francophone Africa and the rest of Africa, touching also lightly on South African politics, because that's where he is currently residing. So we're going to be having quite a holistic conversation, so hope you enjoy. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. I'm happy to be on your show this afternoon.
Great.
Thank you.
I'm happy to have you. So tell us, why didn't you win the presidential election in Benin? What went wrong?
Saying not to win, I think for me, it's interesting. We said new generation, new minds, new Africa. That's what the new generation is talking about.
Right.
A new vision with strong institutions, accountability, and strong reform. That's what impacts into what we wanted to do in Benin. Some people said it was too early. We don't think that is too early. Because the continent is craving for a new generation of leaders to come and transcend what was happening before.
Right.
Not to say that what our peers have done are wrong. We want to look at a different angle of our continent. And that's what my take when I went to Benin. Looking at basically at how to restructure the governments, put a new structures in place to speak to the new aspiration of new Africa.
So would you say that Africans in general are a bit allergic to change? That a lot of the countries on the continent are not yet ready for a party aside from the revolutionary parties?
Yeah, it's kind of, when you look at it, it's all over the world. Even our own body doesn't allow any kind of changes. You need to force it. That's how the revolution never accept reforms, changes, new things for their own countries. And you have to force it. And I think the next time we go there, we do things differently.
Are you going to run again?
Definitely, I'll be their president.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, so this is something that you're focused on?
Not really. You know, for Africa, my focus is the continent. And Africa, for me, I look at a country like Benin as a very strategic country. If you look at Africa as a gun, Benin is like a trigger if you look at it. And I know to propel the new ideology of Africa, if I go there, I'll pull the trigger and change and make a lot of things change. My members of the Pan-African Business Forum, they like mine of Mr. Frank Boya, Mr. Alice Filgis, Mr. Karim Wan, and all those people are new generation for the continent.
Right.
And those people are looking at craving for a new kind of aspiration. It's a new generation of entrepreneurs who have built themselves from zero.
Right.
And we want to see a different Africa. I'm sure we'll talk about it.
Good, yeah, later on in the conversation. So we have a discourse that goes on around presidential candidates, where every country will say, do we need somebody who will keep in line with the revolutionary principles, or do we need somebody, you know, there's that debate between a president being a politician versus a businessman. Now, you've started the Pan-African Business Forum,
Yes, yeah.
and in essence, you're written down in a lot of ways as a businessman.
Definitely.
And then we've got the US election, where Donald Trump is looked at as a businessman. Do you think that there's a place where a politician can be both a businessman and a politician and lead a country? What do countries need? A politician or a businessman?
Definitely, you need to converge two together. It's quite very important. First of all, business is about politics.
Right.
That you can't stay away from that. Be able to make the first $100 million US or from $50,000 US in the context of Africa.
Right.
You need to have a bit of politics to be able to do that. And for us today, the dynamism in terms of Africa, there is the pattern which was not there before. The government of Africa today need to have a basis of business of the day. And that's why when we look at Benin contest, we said we crafted what we call economic development program for the country, where we put certain kind of matrix in place. The first matrix, we talk about economic development. Second is reform and youth and women empowerment. And the fourth one is security and social. But all this is, the foundation of that is reform.
Right.
And when you look at the business acumen, it must be the issue of every government. And what we did was that we started with the austerity measures. We said the government of Africa today are too much of a ministerials, many of them. And we, in Benin, what I told them is that from 28, let's bring it back to 18 or 16 and empower some of the DGs to have more say into the government.
Right.
And in terms of the reform, we put certain kind of measures in place, the accountability, some of the tenders, how things are done, should not be done centralized in one kind of areas. This is what Africa needs to do, because that's what we do in the business sector.
Right.
And the politics come into it when we look at, first of all, making money. Without money, there's no government.
100%, so especially in Africa.
In Africa.
Yeah.
And we look at countries like your own country, Zimbabwe, and Benin. The GDP, which is set from the World Bank, is kind of a classic way of making us to not be part and parcel of the dynamism of foreign direct investment.
Of course, because we seem almost insignificant.
Definitely,
Right.
definitely.
Right.
And that's why sometimes it's quite very important to have a different kind of a thinking, politics and business together, to give a new direction to the continent.
So you feel that a president can encompass both?
Well, definitely.
Interestingly enough, the Pan-African Business Forum in September endorsed Hillary Clinton of the Democratic Party as the presidential election candidate, basically. So why would you steer toward Hillary Clinton, where if we were to talk about politics and business coinciding, we would expect you to go with Donald Trump? Explain to us why you chose to back Hillary.
First of all, I said many years ago when Warren Buffett was making, it was a conferences in America, and I have an opportunity to be around there, and I was one of the speakers. And,
Right.
I told people if Donald Trump and Warren Buffett was in South Africa, he can never be a billionaire. The context of a billionaire is around the environment where he lives,
Right.
the politics around that environment,
Right.
and understanding the market.
Right.
That is one thing which is quite very important. And also, a business doesn't necessarily mean selling, buying, selling. Business of the day is maybe what you are also doing. Is at the end of the day, we must see a profitability in terms of what you are getting now.
Sure.
If you look at the context of Hillary Clinton, where they come from, we take stock of where they come from. And for Pan-African Business Forum, for our colleagues, we are championing the women leadership. And in the new era we are going in Africa, the continent is going from, in the next 35 years, our GDP is going to be 18.3 trillion ahead of
Predicted.
America
Correct.
and Europe.
Right.
And we have 450 million arable land. Less than 10% has been touched. And we have, if you look at our population reach in the next 32 years, we will reach 2 billion, which is quite very important in the market segments. So if we put all those things in place, and the capacity has been built, and that pyramid, you see 67% of the pyramid of the population is youth. More money for pension fund, more money for infrastructure. And then Africa, we need all the partners. We don't want to behave like 40 years ago. We don't want to talk about revolution, communists, Che Guevara, Mandela, and all this. It's a different era. Let us close that chapter. Chapter of business.
I like that you brought that up because, you know, in reading about you and understanding the politician that you are, there are certain, you know, areas that you touched on. And I asked you if Africa was ready for a revolutionary leader like yourself. You know, when I asked you why it is you didn't win in the election. From what you're saying, my own country, right? You touched on it earlier. There's that mentality that Africa can do it by itself from some leaders on the continent. You seem to think that we need to work together, particularly with the US.
Yes,
How do we guard our resources when we've been so hard hit by the resource curse in Africa?
Yeah, I tell people, it's quite interesting. You know, those era of those leaders, we don't need to blame them. It's not their fault. They've taken it to some level. But for us, for the new generation, we need to canvas the expertise of those people, work together. If you know, look at the old Russia. Look at the old countries where there's we don't want that. We are a new generation in the continent. We aspire to all the world, all the nice life everybody have been able to do.
Are we really the new generation
I
as a
think we
continent?
are
there yet?
We are ready. That's why some of us are already opening our hand to the West.
Right.
And we're saying, let us work it out together. So that, you know, look at the issue of Singapore, Dubai, Malaysia, South Africa. That's some of the basis of everything we're doing on this earth. You know,
so the Asian tigers is something we must aspire to be as Africa.
Of course. You need to, there's no...
But we're so divided. You know, even the way that you're thinking as the new generation of a leader, you're thinking completely different to how a lot of the African countries are. You've got countries bowing out of the ICC. Look at Burundi, South Africa recently left the ICC, right? Yeah. You've got countries that are holding on, where the revolutionary parties are holding on to power and are not ready for the transition you're speaking of. So which Africa are you leading? And which one are you leaving behind?
You must understand that that's what we're talking about, the business and the politics, and the rhetorics. But many of we did an autopsy of the climate of the policies in the continent, and we realized that we still have out of the governing parties in Africa and the developing countries, 73% which are still rhetoric, not business-minded. What the people need, they need money, infrastructure to grow it. And for you to do it, you have to learn it from someone.
Right.
We need to work together with these people. The new generation you are seeing now, this is a generation of us who have worked very hard in our age, what we have been able to achieve, coming from nowhere, less than $10, sleeping on the roadside, and we did it on our own.
Right.
So if we're able to get that kind of support and build it together with them, on our 10, Definitely, we are not.
Will we be able to bargain on our terms?
Definitely.
Africa is
Definitely.
constantly putting out their hand, putting out a begging bowl, and making ourselves, dependent on the resources that we need to survive.
Definitely, I must tell you. Look at we in the Pan-African Business Forum. One of our motto is that we are trying to eradicate the vision of always waiting for aids. You know what happened to your country, for instance, Zimbabwe? It shouldn't have happened, definitely. And that doesn't mean that we support the ideology of President Mugabe. He's a great man for the continent. He have drive a very successful policies in the continent. But something is missing.
Which is what?
Which is that the other ideology to clinch in, to support him, to come out. Because if African countries decided that when they put sanctions on Zimbabwe, they said, we will not do anything with you, they will have a different discussions. That's what the new generation is going to do.
You feel that
Of
Africa
course,
would
of course.
put sanctions on its fellow African country?
No, if they said there's sanction, they will not do, we will not trade with them. That's what we will not trade with you till you remove the sanction from Zimbabwe.
Oh, as in you would say that to the West or the superpowers, you would stand by Zimbabwe.
Of course.
So why hasn't that happened up
Because
until now?
that's
We
why
have
the
been
new-
under sanctions for years.
No, the new generation, that's what we are up to. Because
Right.
we always said
That
are
we
not-
stand together
of course,
as
we need
African
to stand
countries.
together because what is the African Union is not yet strong. Although Pan-African, that's why the Pan-African Business Forum fought for Constance Dlamini Zuma to be there. She's done her part. When you put a sanction on Zimbabwe, it's not about Mugabe. It's about the people of Zimbabwe. And then there must be a harmonized decision among the African countries that World Bank, pack your things, leave this continent. If you want to deal with it, it's not about let us sit down and when we start having those kind of bilateral discussions in the real terms, because what the West talk about is interest.
Right.
If we can start discussing about their interests, they don't have friends, they have interests. Therefore, the regional integrations, the regional bodies are not so strong because everybody talk through his teeth. So that's why Pan-African Business Forum said, for the Africa to move to where we are getting to, we need to embody and restructure the regional integration to be strong. And therefore, when they become strong, they have a place into the international market, WTO.
Right.
Then we can make a decision.
Right.
We are the only continent which can still be the basket of the world to provide food for them.
Right.
We can still do that. If you check, the last time South Africa was having a dispute with the chicken, the agua, with the US. Pan-African Business Forum came
Stepped in there. I didn't
stepped
see
in,
that.
and when we said it, the BRICS countries came to our support, and the American, the people sat down with the DTIs, and we were able to find solution. For we can't allow Zimbabwe. It's a great nation. Some of you contribute 37% to the economy of South Africa, from all angles. So you cannot just allow Mugabe alone to fight for that.
Right.
But you would agree then that there's not enough unity on the continent.
Definitely.
What you're saying is an ideal, whereas something as the AU, right, the African Union Charter is supposed to put African countries together to stand by, for or against, collectively, a certain policy. But we don't have that unity. You'll find that the AU doesn't necessarily back each other. All the countries that are members of that don't necessarily back each other.
That's where the issue of the Francophone, Portuguese, and English people come, because they come with the different masters.
Yes.
And when I was a candidate, people said I'm an agent of South Africa. And some people say I'm an agent of the English-speaking countries, but it's quite interesting to know that.
Are you?
I'm not. I'm an independent bodies, and I am an Africanist, an African Renaissance. But the point is that when you have the Francophone, I must say it, till today, 70% of them still report to France. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's something wrong with the new generation.
There's something wrong with
Yeah,
that.
there's something wrong with that.
I mean,
And,
none of us as former colonies
yeah.
still report to our
So
colonies.
decision, I don't want to say it here, and I take responsibility for what I'm going to say, but we still have a currency for 18 countries, which is we don't have control on that.
Right.
And if you look at all those things, we said we are not going to fight those people. We need to sit down with them. That's why I'm saying, let us work together with them. So the issue for Zimbabwe and the other countries where there's a sanction for some of us, our new generation, it's not about the government people, it's about the people.
It's about the people.
It's about the people.
Always affect the people.
And they destroy a very great economy. Yeah. And we have to sit down with them and find a solution together. But the message must come through the regional bodies, African Union. We have an African Development Bank, which is there. We have the World Bank. People still depend on us. So if we have to start the new generation come in and recraft the African Union in terms of decision making, then I don't think that those issues, in our report for Zimbabwe, we look at what is happening over there.
Right.
And the other countries, like Egypt, we went there, Pan-African Business Forum, we were there. We started by the President Al-Sisi. We said sometimes it's quite difficult. Sometimes, sorry to say it, I'm sure you heard me in some of my interviews. Sometimes it's necessary for coup d'etat to make in some countries. A lot of people don't have the courage to say it. Coup d'etat is very important sometimes when it becomes necessary. Because what is the role of the military people is to restore law and order. In some countries like...
That's frightening.
Yeah, of course. But
and some African countries cannot survive a coup d'etat.
No, it's sometimes.
Yes,
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah. When you look at the case of
the
Egypt...
North African countries, yeah.
You look at a country like... there are some countries, if you don't have Armstrong on it, you can't deal with certain kind of issues. Sometimes it becomes necessary.
What happens in a situation where the military is on the side of the ruling party? Then you can't have that. How does change come about?
That is an issue of the people to decide about
the
it.
People of
yeah, because the power is in the hand of the people. They can make the decision.
100%.
They come out, they make the decision. Yeah. But when the militaries realize that there's no really condescence between the people and the government, it becomes their responsibility to make a decision.
Right. Looking now to the Pan-African Business Forum and the role that it plays, and also your aspirations to become president, what is the disconnect between Francophone Africa and the rest of Africa? The rest of Africa being Anglophone and Portuguese-speaking Africa. Where is there what are the barriers?
But there's something I must give to the Francophone countries. Although they are small in their numbers, they still control the African Union. They are still the people who make the decision over there.
I don't know about that, but we'll take it.
Because
I think that's definitely a debatable issue.
They've been...
definitely a debatable issue.
I'm telling you, it's going to change a little bit. We came in and bring about certain kind of changes, but they are very well organized. The difference between...
Well, it's easy to organize you because, as you said, you're small in number.
Yeah.
So it's easier for you to organize
because we
yourself.
have one master. It's a France.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. That you can, when it's time to mobilize, you can. Whereas some of us.
You know what? That's what I'm trying to tell you. In a Francophone country, if the decision comes from above and said this is what is going to be your position, I think 60% of them will adhere to that position. But English-speaking countries, they are independent. So they don't have alignments. That is the difference between the other countries and the Francophone countries. Francophone countries are very united.
So does that mean that you almost isolate yourselves? Because, English-speaking and Portuguese-speaking, probably mostly Anglophone Africa, will be criticized for leaving out the rest of Africa in whatever fight that they are currently pursuing. Do you feel left out as Francophone countries, or are you quite okay operating?
We run the show. Although you people speak a lot, we run the show. Okay. I'll tell you, because when there's a...
But see, we don't want that. Even this conversation here, we don't want
who is in charge of
that.
Who is in charge of the World Bank?
No, but you hear what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We don't want an Africa where Francophone Africa stands on its own, Anglophone Africa stands on its own, Portuguese Africa stands on its own. My question is, how do we integrate the three?
That's why...
How do we have a united state?
That's why the Pan-African Business Forum, you see, in our model of the Pan-African Business Forum, we have everybody. We have our great brother, Frank Buyoya, which is one of our executive director for medium and small enterprises.
Right.
Yeah, SMEs. And we have Mohamed Chilba from Egypt. And we have Diaz from Angola. And Sylvester from Angola.
Right.
And we have everybody all over around to harmonize that kind of a vision for the continent. And we are like the driving forces which are trying to combine everybody together.
Yeah.
And for us, we can have Francophone here, Spanish people here, and English people here. We need to have united force. If we have that united force, what is happening to other countries will not happen anymore.
That's the thing. That's the thing. So the role of the Pan-African Business Forum is to integrate all of this and particularly focus on
No, the Pan-Africa Business Forum is a coalition for the reinforcement of investment for the continent.
Right.
We have two policy advocacy. One is a political advocacy, and the other one is a business advocacy. And the political one is for us to play a greater role in terms of how we can shape in any kind of decision into the policies to advance the business. And the other one is reforms. We reform all the sectors to attract more foreign direct investment in the countries. Our job is to see wherever there is an opportunity to create a better reform for the foreign direct investment. You see there's something which is always when you come to some of us, our fraternity, and you ask, you want to invest in any country, we start looking at certain kind of classic elements. What is the GDP of the country? What are the laws over there? And when we look at each country, we realize they lack certain kind of laws. We go in as a Pan-African Business Forum. We finance it. We do seminars there. We assist the government. We advise them on it from our own funds, and we do that. We send experts to do that from the mining sector, education, health, trade, industry, and all those concepts. That's what we do most of the time. By doing that, we help the continent to reach quickly that GDP we wanted to have.
As you can see, we have a lot of areas to cover as an African continent, and this program is going to take us on that journey. We're not always going to get bad news, believe it or not. There are some amazing developments that are happening on the continent. So it will be good, it will be bad, and sometimes it might be ugly. So enjoy this journey right here on Ruvheneko.